Have you ever found yourself dancing past a table full of teachers or professional dancers and changing the way you dance based on that? Because suddenly you're aware that they might be watching you and you change the way you execute the movements, and maybe your mind goes even somewhere else entirely away from the dance. But that feeling, that space where suddenly you're aware that you're being watched and the shift that happens internally, what is that feeling? What is that experience for us dancers? Why does it happen? Does it happen to everyone? Or are some people more at ease and you don't necessarily care? I remember the first time that this feeling really came over me was when I was in Buenos Aires at a milonga. And it just so happened that Chicho Frumboli was in attendance and he was sitting by the line of dance. And of course, knowing who he was and admiring him as much as I did, my naive heart cried out for the possibility that maybe he would see me dance and be so impressed with me that he would capaceo me. And the more aware I was of him watching me, the more nervous I felt, the more I wanted to appear a certain way. And at the same time that I felt this desire to appear a certain way, I was also confronted with my own self-doubt and a lack of experience, lack of, I guess, understanding whether something I was doing is actually good or not. It's such a funny place to be because it really can shake you. And so I remember this tanda. I don't remember anything about that night. I don't even remember who I danced that tanda with. I only remember being aware of wanting to be seen a certain way by this professional dancer. So in this episode, we're going to talk about this shift that occurs for us when we become aware that we're being watched, that we're being seen a certain way. And what does that shift indicate? What does it say about us? Because I think for many of us, the anxiety that it causes might indicate that there's something wrong with us, that there's maybe a level of immaturity that we are experiencing. And does it serve a purpose in our dance? Can we perhaps harness its power, its energy for our own benefit? That's the question that I started asking myself. And, in tango, we learn to see certain things as indicators of the right way of dancing tango. And there's a certain image of this thing called connection that we have, and maybe we see it displayed by teachers, by professionals. And I don't know about you, but I kind of found myself along the way acting as if, I want to emulate that look. So I want to move in a way that emulates this expression of connection, which to us seems to be the ultimate goal of tango. And a lot of the professional dancers are, whether they make it or not, is sort of pivoting on whether their connection is good. So we get attached, we chase after the connection, we chase after the experience of it, but also the look of it. Specifically, as a follower, I know I would look at certain other followers, and if those dancers were regarded highly by the community as displaying these qualities of connection, of course, I would want to emulate them. So the dancers that I looked up to at the time, I wanted to move like them. I wanted to learn to look like them. But the interesting thing about this look of connection is that sometimes it's just the surface. Have you ever experienced this phenomenon that you might watch someone and think that they have incredible connection? They look so beautiful and elegant. And then you take the embrace and it doesn't feel anything like it looks. So there is this interesting paradox that there is a look out there that you can actually refine and make yourself appear a certain way and have this image of connection, but it actually could be divorced from the real experience of connection that we want in the dance. And I think a good reflection of where we're at in relation to this idea is what happens when we realize we're being watched. When we are really connected with our partner and we are fully accepting of how we dance, we react very differently to being watched and being seen. But let's actually go back a little bit and talk about what is this desire that we have to be seen a certain way. Where does that desire come from? I don't know if there is a dancer who doesn't have this desire. Maybe some have it more than others. But even if you're not a person who necessarily wants to be on stage and to be watched by hundreds of people, I would say that everybody who dances at all wants to appear good at what you're dancing, right? You want to look good. You want to be seen as knowing what you're doing, being graceful. And that's a very innocent desire. I think it's very pure. It comes from a pure place. But on top of that, I think there's lots of other layers that come into play when we dance, especially when we dance something like tango. And I find that our desire to look a certain way gets caught up between two seemingly opposing places. The desire to express yourself and who you are, and the desire to belong. I want to both find a way to express myself in a unique way, but I'm also simultaneously very concerned and care very deeply about belonging, meaning fitting in and actually fulfilling the expectations of being a tango dancer. Ultimately, you have to have this balance, whether you dance tango or anything else. There is always going to be that tension. For many dancers, we kind of get caught in one or the other for periods of time because we don't necessarily know yet. And that feeling of what does it mean to actually dance and express yourself and have your own style, and at the same time be respected by other dancers and seen as that you're dancing in the right way. Some dancers, they dwell on the side of the belonging more, meaning that they dance in a way that will get them accepted into the ranks. So they focus on training themselves to move in a way that would allow them access to more advanced dancers, and they want to emulate the dancers who are in that level, let's say. They will dress like them, move like them, embellish like them. And I think emulating a role model and striving to develop your dance by copying other dancers, copying their techniques or their sequences. I don't actually think there's anything wrong with that. It's a really important part of development. It's done in all sorts of art forms as a learning stage. that you would study the masters and copy their works, perhaps as a painter. So I went through that phase, and it was a necessary place to drill into. But I definitely found this moment where I kind of started hitting a wall a little bit, where learning more and more to look like someone else wasn't really getting me anywhere. And for some reason, it does seem very promising that if you, as a follower, want the attention of advanced leaders, that you would spend your time trying to look the part. And for a lot of times for followers, that means wearing heels, wearing dresses. That definitely can work. And I definitely followed that line of thinking early on when I was told that if I wanted to get more dances, all I had to do was wear shorter skirts. And so I did. And it did work for a while, but I guess I plateaued. The skirt could not go any shorter, I guess. And also, I got tired of wearing heels. There is a natural point at which emulating others and acting out the movement in a way that you believe it should be, that phase should come to an end, or there should be a moment of transition when the pendulum begins to swing in the opposite direction, where on the opposite side is this question of expression, which some dancers only dwell in expression, and they never care what they look like, and they don't necessarily put in the effort to look like anyone. And they're limited in their own way, but they have a lot of fun. And they might actually be quite happy where they're at, but they won't be dancing necessarily with the higher level dancers. So that's kind of the trade off. But this place of expression is more of this awareness of how we ourselves are unique, and that there is a completely individual style that each one of us brings to the dance. Knowing what that looks like in your body demands that you know what you look like from the outside. And I think that's why when we are suddenly aware of being watched, it brings up a lot of emotion, because if we don't spend time with that feeling very often, then of course it's going to be an unknown territory for us. The first time, I think, not even the first time, I would say the first 100 times that I filmed myself dancing, it affected the way I danced. It took so many months, years even, for me to genuinely say that when the camera goes on, I do not change the way I dance. I dance the same way. But that did not used to be the case. I said earlier that it's very tempting to think that pursuing a particular look or emulating a particular style is going to be the path towards you mastering the dance to the level that's satisfactory to you. But I think the faster path, a more direct path to that place, is seeing yourself dance and you being the observer, you watching yourself. And in this way, the concern that we have for how we look and that experience of being watched, the energy that that produces in us can actually serve us in our development, because now when I'm aware of being watched, it does not faze me the same way that it did before. So with time, our perception of ourselves changes as we watch ourselves develop. And again, I know the cringe factor is there. I still have cringe a lot of times when I watch myself, but there's also the experience of the opposite, which is a lot more empowering and gratifying than any compliment or any praise you might get from a teacher or a professional dancer. The appreciation that you might self-generate for yourself, for your own dance, that's the thing that you will be expressing on the dance floor. And paradoxically, but I think it really makes sense why that is. It's when we allow ourselves to really dance how we are meant to dance that we become attractive to the dancers that we want to dance with. It's like we think that all the leaders out there and all the followers out there, what they're looking for is how closely do we match the standard or the ideal? How close are we to matching the virtuosic talent of professional dancers? We think that this is a lot of times what people are looking for on the dance floor. But the reality is, and I know that many people have experienced this, that the dancers that catch our eye ultimately are the dancers who are dancing themselves. They're very unique in themselves, and they dance as if they fully embody themselves, like they're not pretending to be anything else. And I think we all know what that looks like. It's very obvious. A lot of times when I see dancers like that, it's like they glow out of the darkness. They attract my eye and I can't look away. One of the ways that this journey, this inner evolution gets reflected in our dance is through our clothing, which I'm going to have a separate episode on clothing, but I wanted to touch upon it in this context because what we wear to the milonga often reflects how we feel in relation to the dancers around us, to the community, and whether we accept who we are. What I wore at the beginning when I first started tango was I wore just regular clothes. At the time, I was very interested in wearing kind of monochromatic palettes with lots of asymmetry. I had a very severe haircut. I looked very different. And very quickly, I noticed that what I wore was very different from what the women were wearing at the milonga. And it was unthinkable to me when I first started that I would wear dresses like that and skirts like that hug your body and show the curves and reveal your thigh with the slit in the back of the dress. You know, it was kind of unthinkable at first. But when I was in Buenos Aires, I realized that that's what makes a tango dancer. That's what looks like tango. That's what the expectation is. So I learned to wear those clothes. I learned to wear the dresses, the skirts, the heels. And I did that for many years. But eventually it was really obvious to me that it's not the clothes that make me comfortable and the comfort that I was lacking in my dance felt like something that I was cutting off in myself and my expression, that the choice to wear heels or wear tight-fitting clothing meant that I was agreeing to less range of motion and more pain and ultimately less dancing. So the conversation in my own mind really oscillated between, well, I don't want to wear this, but I have to because that's how I attract dancers. But then I don't want to have to wear it. I want to wear stuff that I can actually move in and that I'm comfortable in. But then maybe I'm not going to get dances. And that dialogue is very difficult to manage. I know for a lot of dancers, this is a present conversation. I even had a call recently with someone who was saying, I want to go to this event and I just want to bring a pair of flats, but is that okay? Or should I bring a pair of heels just in case? Because maybe I'm not going to get as many dances if I just wear flats and people are going to, ignore me. So it's a real question, and it really gets at the heart of this feeling. How do we feel in our bodies? How do we feel in the dance when we're being watched? Does it express what we are really truly wanting to say? Or the moment that we actually are being watched, or we become aware of being watched, we shift into trying to be something else, trying to appear a certain way that we think we're supposed to. Ultimately, I don't think that I will ever get to a point where I don't get affected somehow by the awareness that I'm being watched. But the intensity of the sensation shifts depending on who's watching. And perhaps the people who used to make me nervous don't make me nervous, but there's other people that affect me in a similar way. I think the value of experiencing those moments where we're sort of having to deal with all of this emotional charge is that quality of self-reflection that it gives us, this moment of perspective on where we're really at. Because as I said, when you might have a feeling of your dance in the embrace and you might believe that it's a certain way and you might feel that it's beautiful and has all this depth to it. But then when you see yourself on video and you realize, oh my God, it's not there, this creates that opening for us to actually be moving towards what we want. Because just the awareness that, oh, what I think I'm portraying is not actually happening, even that is going to change the way you dance. So the more that we open up to, I think, the possibility that it's good to be watched, it's good to be aware that someone's watching you. And we can even take it as a compliment and an opportunity to test our ability to hold the focus on dancing ourselves. And, seeing, are we capable of that? And how long and how much? Sometimes I can really be in my element and not be affected at all. And other times I'm shaken to my core and I can't really gather my thoughts at all. But both of those are important aspects of the dance at this point. And they both serve the purpose of deepening our awareness of what it means for us to connect to ourselves, to our bodies. What does it mean for us to actually dance ourselves, dance our own body, expressing ourselves, and of course, accepting ourselves, right? Like that's typically the most difficult part, is just to accept who we are as dancers in this moment. And in the moments that you think that you're really not dancing as well as you should be, and you don't want people to watch you because you're not perfect, just remember that we're always a lot more critical of ourselves than other people. Things always look worse to us than they do to others. So take your own opinion of yourself with a grain of salt. Now, I'm curious, where are you at with this? Do you get shaken up when you know there's a camera photographing you or filming you, or you can tell that a teacher is watching you? Does it ruffle your feathers? Or maybe you actually enjoy it. Maybe it makes you kind of rise to the occasion and you appreciate being watched. Which one is it to you? Let me know in the comments. Now, speaking of musicality, next week, we're going to talk about what are the differences between experiencing musicality as a leader versus a follower. Is it the same? How is it different? So join me next week on the next banter. Until then, Ciao.